few special guests with us tonight. Susan Landry, former Campbell City Council member, is here, and her colleague Terry Hines, current council member from City of Campbell. Ann Bybee, also from City of Campbell, is here tonight. Thank you all for being our locals and really enabling this wonderful facility. Kathy Watanabe, who is a former Santa Clara City Council member and current trustee of the Santa Clara School Board here. The council member, Albert Gonzalez from Santa Clara. Thank you for being with us today, council member. Um, Rod Shahal from council, also from Santa Clara. Thank you so much for being with us. And Emma, you're here from Council Member Tordilla's office. Yes, all right. And I would be remiss to not thank, we don't get to see them in person, but you all, I hope, experience the wonderful Del Mar High School Band. That was their last performance of the year. So that was so fun to have them. And then a shout out to Table and Terrace Catering for that beautiful display. Almost too good looking to eat, but I hope you are eating. Oh. So now that I know a couple of you are new, I'm going to assume you didn't get to join the supervisor and I at our grand opening on May 9th. It was a very busy day because, really, thanks to the community support and the city's dedication, this fully remodeled library celebrated with almost 3,000 excited and enthusiastic residents in attendance. And I hope that now, tonight, you will have a moment, maybe a quieter moment, to explore this lovely new space. So the library building was originally built in 1975 and until recently was actually the oldest library building in the entire county because in 2018, the residents of Campbell approved the $50 million bond to renovate the library and to build this and the almost finished police operations facility. So the planning and design for this remodel began in 2020, and it really reflects what residents prioritized. Plus, it's a public library space that iterates and responds to the needs of your community. And although it didn't get any more square footage, it's a really wonderful example of how public input, creative design, and innovative future planning can result in really big changes to benefit generations to come. I hope you'll notice the natural light, the many windows, the floor to ceiling clerestory from the lower level to the upper level. The overlook right outside the door here is the flexible meeting space for multiple purposes. 3 reservable meeting rooms. I hope you'll take advantage of reserving those for free. And then, did you know that during extreme heat or cold, wet conditions, county libraries serve as official warming and cooling centers during our open hours? So this also happens and then the power goes out. Well, fortunately, now here in Campbell, we are not forced to close because the infrastructure grant from the California State Library has enabled a full generator so that we can continue to power the library. It can be a resource center for everyone during those critical times. So the library district really strives to create a place where you each can belong, connect, and discover at the library. Hosting the town hall is really one of the ways that your local public library connects you with ideas, information, and experiences that are relevant and important to you. So I hope you'll get a library card. I hope you'll have a chance to meet Nicole King, who's your community librarian here in Campbell, and of course, check out some books. And now, really, with much honor, I am so pleased to be able to introduce tonight's speaker, but she is not only your representative here, County Supervisor for District 4. She also serves on the Library JPA. And so I'm so pleased to welcome and introduce Supervisor Susan Ellenberg.
I love libraries so much, and it's really fun to be able to do this event here. I think I am the first official um, program to happen in this room. So, welcome to all of you. Also, that may have been the happiest news that you're going to hear for the next hour. But a couple of housekeeping things first. Very happy 36th anniversary to my husband, Steve, because this is how we roll and where we spend our anniversary. And to the several people who mentioned that my town halls could end the drought in California, this is not even the second, but the third event I have done where it has rained unexpectedly. So thank you for not melting and for coming out tonight. And thank you all for being here as we work through really one of the most consequential budget cycles that our county has faced in decades. I want to remind everybody before I fully get started that if you have questions, and I hope you do, David is right there waving. He's got index cards and would grab one now, whenever you like. Put your questions down as you think of them. We'll collect them at the end and go through as many as possible. If I'm not able to answer all of them in our allotted time, we will send an email out to folks, everybody who has registered, with the remaining information. So please grab a card from David. My presentation, if you're trying to block out your attention spans, is about 25 minutes, leaving the rest of the time for questions. And believe me, that is a lot of information and as much as you need to hear. Before I talk about the biggest challenges that we are facing this year, I want to ground us in the fundamentals. What our county budget is, where the revenue comes from, how the dollars are used, and the role that county government plays in the lives of our residents. And there are two wonderful young children sitting near the front, and my goal is that if they are awake and even remotely engaged by the end, this will have been a screaming success. So, county governments exist in large part to support individuals and families who, for a whole variety of reasons, are unable to live entirely self-sufficiently. When local government steps up to stabilize those households, the entire community benefits. We all live in a county that is safer, healthier, and more resilient. Our county's work is organized into five major policy areas: finance and government operations, health and hospital system, children, seniors and families, public safety and justice, and housing, land use, environment, and transportation. Each of the five supervisors chairs one of those committees and serves as the vice chair of the other. And all of the 40 plus county departments fall under one of those five policy committees. The scale of work across these five areas is not evenly distributed. As you'll see in the next slide, slightly more than half of our total budget and half of our workforce is concentrated in the health and hospital system. So, in the 2025-2026, that's the current fiscal year that we're in, the budget that we approved last July, our county budget totaled about $13.7 billion. I know, right? And yet, most of that revenue comes from federal and state sources and is very specifically directed to fund specific programs. The remainder comes from local property taxes, health system revenues, and a range of other fees for service and work that we do and try to recover the cost of that work. The largest share of our budget, as I said, is invested in our health and hospital system. Santa Clara County owns and operates the second largest public health system in California, with how many hospitals? We'll make it a little interactive. 4 comprehensive hospitals, along with a broad network of directly operated and community-based clinics. We also provide health coverage for residents who would otherwise have no access to consistent care. And the scale of that work is really staggering. An ambulance arrives at one of our hospitals every 15 minutes every single day of the year. Those calls account for 45% of all emergency responses in the county And in 2024, Valley Medical Center, which is our flagship hospital, treated more trauma cases than any other hospital in the entire state. So when we talk about the county budget, please know we're not talking in the abstract. We are talking about the infrastructure that quite literally keeps people alive. The last 10 months have been defined by the absolutely seismic shift created by the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. Counties across California, ours certainly included, have been scrambling to absorb those ripple effects. Santa Clara County residents stepped up. They voted to self-tax to preserve our public health system. So thank you to the 57 plus percent of you that voted for that. We increased dramatically our advocacy at the state and federal levels. We made significant cuts already to this year's budget back in March, and we're going to have to do more in the coming weeks. We are doing everything within our control. But the truth is this: most of the decisions affecting our local budget were made by entities outside of our control. Federal and state mandates dictate what services counties provide and how we must provide them. Well, unfortunately, the funding to sustain those mandates continues to shrink. And so we find ourselves in a moment where robust solutions are not coming from elsewhere. We have to find them ourselves and within this county's budget. As I began this year's budget balancing process at our budget workshops last month, I articulated 3 principles that are top of mind for me throughout this whole process. Number 1, I trust that the county administration has made recommendations grounded in expertise and a commitment to preserving vital services. Second, I expect transparency, and our residents, all of you, deserve to understand in detail how your dollars are being used. And third, every decision I make is through the lens of who is impacted and is there something we can do that would impact them less, that would do less harm. Because even modest cuts compound when the same individuals rely on multiple county systems. And every single service we provide, especially the prevention services, contribute to public safety and community well-being. Let's zoom out for a minute and talk about the big economic outlook, where we are kind of situated today. We are facing a convergence of challenges: a structural deficit, declining fund balances, significant facility needs, dramatic and severe federal restructuring of long stable funding sources, state budget volatility, and slowing property tax growth. Yay. Over the past decade, counties have been mandated by the state government to do new work that has amounted to nearly $1 billion in additional county general fund costs. This is not sustainable. Our county has received for the last number of years just under $3 billion in Medicaid reimbursements from the federal government. The Trump administration made dramatic changes to Medicaid eligibility that are now forcing hundreds of millions of local dollars to be shifted to cover the shortfalls when those reimbursements don't come. We still have to provide the care. That is our mandate. We are now providing care with far, far fewer dollars reimbursed to us. We also received nearly $500 million in federal funds for safety net services, including nutrition support, public health, older adult care, essentially the core work of county government. And so many of those funds are in jeopardy as well. As I said a couple minutes ago, at the mid-year point, our board approved nearly $200 million in cuts to our health and hospital system and implemented a number of revenue savings efficiencies, including bringing all four of our hospitals into one enterprise fund. And in a couple of weeks, we will be compelled to approve even more cuts, and that is with the Measure A funding. Measure A, as you all absolutely heard, was a piece of our strategy to mitigate for Medicaid losses. And as promised to the voters, those dollars are recommended to be allocated entirely to our local hospital system. Proposed Measure A allocations are shown on that slide, so I won't read through them. But take a look, and it's important to remember that hospitals produce revenue as well as generate expenses. Absent HR1, if that big, beautiful bill had not happened, this system, our health and hospital system, would be entirely manageable with a decreasing annual general fund supplement. But HR1 changed a half century of reliable presumptions about funding streams, and that is the heart of our current situation. I know it's just numbers and budget, but like it tightens my heart because I know what it means for so many residents. But I will gather myself. I'll say a word about our behavioral health system, which is in the middle of a profound transformation. Our local system, behavioral health, is being hit especially hard by both HR1 and state policy changes because nearly every major funding source it depends on is tightening at the same time. Unlike our hospitals, which can rely on commercial insurance to offset some of the Medi-Cal cuts, county behavioral health departments rely almost entirely on Medi-Cal. So when enrollment drops or federal and state policies reduce funding, the impact is immediate. Due to those changes, we are seeing dramatic decreases in many behavioral health service categories on which the county has been a statewide leader, including suicide prevention and substance use disorder treatment. There's also this technical provision called the CalAIM Medicaid waiver that our county and others have used to fund innovative programs that promote holistic care like temporary housing and other services that aren't normally covered by Medicaid, but we know contribute to people's overall health. That waiver is expiring before the end of this calendar year. It is unknown whether the federal government will renew it. What we do know is that the governor of California has proposed ending state coverage specifically for mobile crisis services, which is maddening because they are well utilized and they are showing positive impact in our county and in counties across the state. Also, at the state level, the shift from Mental Health Services Act, which has been in place for decades, to the new Behavioral Health Services Act, which was approved by voters through Prop 1 last, I don't know, century, I can't remember, 2024. Um, this shift fundamentally redefines what Sacramento expects from counties. First, the amount of funding that the state is now collecting instead of dispersing to counties has doubled. These were local dollars that were previously used to invest in our workforce and in prevention and early intervention programs, again, like the 988 Suicide Prevention Awareness Campaign. Prevention and early intervention funding is being sharply reduced. These are the very tools that allow us to reach people before they are in crisis. Without them, we will undoubtedly see higher demand for ER visits, crisis stabilization, intensive treatment, and long-term care. This is expensive and this is brutal. In the category of children, families, and youth, we are facing a moment which brings both some reassuring stability and some significant fiscal and policy changes. On the positive side, our core departmental operations remain fiscally intact. Roughly 90% of social service agencies' work is mandated by the federal government, and that revenue currently looks fairly stable. In our aging and adult services, while the congregate meal program at senior centers won't change, there is projected to be about a 30% decrease in home delivered meals compared with the current fiscal year. I see some of you nodding, so you already know this. This is a concerning loss for our most vulnerable older adults who need this service and need to eat every day. The related to older adults, the In-Home Supportive Services Program, IHSS, illustrates another of the broader structural challenges that counties are facing. IHSS providers, of course, remain underpaid despite the critical care that they deliver. And because they're not county employees, we can't limit or set the numbers, even as demand grows. IHSS is designed as a shared federal, state, county responsibility. Yet, and I will sound like a broken record soon, the county's share continues to rise sharply. And compounding this, the governor's proposed budget introduces additional risks to county budgets around IHSS. He is recommending eliminating a backup provider system in the coming fiscal year that would remove a critical safety net for recipients when their primary provider is unavailable. They're also proposing in the following year to shift responsibility for growth in the average hours from the state to counties. This, of course, would further increase our financial burden. I deeply empathize with the IHSS workers who deserve higher compensation. And while our county has invested more than nearly any other in health benefits and rate supplements, we cannot carry an underfunded statewide system alone. State and federal partners must do more, and I encourage everyone to join me in these advocacy efforts. More on advocacy in a little bit. Within the Department of Children and Family Services, we're expecting moderate impacts to prevention and schooling services, though the mandated child welfare functions, of course, will remain mostly intact, while the board and administration continue to seek opportunities to strengthen these mandated functions. I should make mention of a topic that also is weighing heavily on my heart, and I imagine on many of yours if you are keeping up with the news. The recent deaths of 2 young children who were being served by our county have made it clear that the county's child welfare system is not functioning as it should, and there is so much work that we need to do. Just last week, the board approved a number of actions that aim to strengthen this system and bolster child safety along the continuum of care by enhancing compliance, transparency, and accountability within the department. We're taking actions now to ensure that the children in our system and receiving services are safe and have the best care possible. As a result of our board's recent actions, we can also expect a revised budget proposal for SSA, for social services, to come to the board in June that reinforce mandated services for children and youth, resource parents, and caregivers who are all part of the county's child welfare ecosystem. And I believe the county executive is also going to bring forward a proposal for a semi-independent auditor who will closely monitor compliance in this department. Talk about public safety and justice. Real and broad public safety requires a balanced approach, both inside and outside what many people think of as the traditional public safety services. I've advocated for years for a comprehensive violence prevention framework and protection of funding for programs that alleviate the conditions that often lead to harm before they start. And they are consistently the most cost-effective tools we have. but those are not the mandated programs. The mandated programs are the deep end, terrible things have already happened programs. In the meantime, in our current budget, each of the traditional public safety departments will see some reductions, although only about half of what they would have seen had Measure A not passed. So while Measure A dollars are not directly going to support the public safety and justice system departments, because of Measure A, we can preserve more of our general funds for other services that we provide. And our public safety departments are the largest or second largest general funded programs in the county. The final committee that I'll talk about is Housing, Land Use, Environment, and Transportation, which somehow is referred to as HULIT. The acronym doesn't work. But I will share a little bit of good news here. A bright spot in the work that we are doing in our Office of Supportive Housing is the county's homelessness prevention services. Our homelessness prevention and supportive housing system work and have been validated by external partners to work and can work at scale if we invest accordingly and in an ongoing way. In the past year, across Santa Clara County, our capacity has grown in nearly every major housing project type. Emergency shelters, we expanded emergency shelters by 39%, now offering more than 3,100 beds. Our rapid rehousing program grew by 11%, with the ability now to stabilize more than 1,600 households every year. And with 886 new permanent supportive housing and rapid response housing units approved or under construction just this year, we are continuing to build the long-term foundation that our community needs. Here's the reality. We are doing more than ever. We are serving more people than ever. The system is stretched to its limits, and it is very hard to visibly see improvements on our streets. Which brings me to another point of advocacy. If we want to keep people housed, if we want to prevent homelessness before it starts, if we want to reduce the number of people living outside and not just manage them, that's again something we cannot do alone. This is the moment where we need the state to step in. Yet, for the 8th year in a row, yes, not coincidentally, as long as Newsom has been the governor, the state budget has not provided sustained ongoing funding to reduce homelessness. The governor has talked about the billions of dollars he has invested in homelessness, but just take a look at the chart because it's important to note that slightly less than a quarter of that funding actually has come to counties, and it comes in 1 year at a time allocations with no promises regarding the next year. And this system or practice of 1 year at a time allocation and continuously shifting the goalposts does not allow us to make long-term investments. This year's homeless housing assistance and prevention allocation was $500 million. The amount truly needed to sustain adequate services should be at least double that. So, as we transition in just a minute into a deeper conversation about what partnership looks like with the governor's office, I want us to hold on to one truth. Our system in Santa Clara County works. It works when it's resourced. It works when it's supported. And with a true partner committed to being with us for the long haul, we can scale what we know changes lives. Okay, some action, some calls to action. Because counties are administrative arms of the state and are mandated to carry out policies enacted at that level, it is essential that we partner with our state representatives and the governor's office to ensure that we can actually implement and operationalize the work that we are required to do. And that's probably the most fundamental difference between cities and counties, is this interdependence we have with the state. Unfortunately, the governor's budget did not recognize any partnership with counties, and we are now looking to and working with our state legislators who are speaking up on our behalf. This year, all 58 counties, including our own, have called on the governor to take critical actions to prevent catastrophic contraction of healthcare services in every corner of the state. We've had 7 asks altogether, some by all of the counties, some just by Santa Clara County. The first one is that the state stabilize California's public hospital systems. HR 1 creates a $1 billion annual deficit just here in Santa Clara County. Public hospitals make up just 6% of hospitals statewide, but they handle more than 50% of the trauma cases and more than 50% of residency programs. These are the hospitals that keep our communities alive in moments of crisis. Our second ask has been to invest in the workforce required to implement federal changes. Eligibility workloads. Eligibility workers are, sorry, I have hair in my face. Eligibility workers are the county employees who help people sign up for and enroll in services for which they are eligible. Hence, they are called eligibility workers. Because there are so many more complicated requirements to maintain Medicaid right now, and you have to declare your eligibility twice a year rather than once a year, this is going to be an immense increase in workload for our eligibility workers. But for every person we keep on their Medicaid, that is a huge savings compared to the investments that we need to be making to expand that eligibility workforce. That is, to me, a clear return on investment. There is some money in the proposed budget for that. I would like to see more, but very, very appreciative of what is there. Our third ask is that the state provide ongoing funds to address the surge in uninsured residents, because despite our best efforts, despite the additional work that eligibility workers will do, millions of Californians across the state are expected to lose coverage due to those federal changes from HR 1 and expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies. Without support, those folks will turn to county systems that are already stretched to the breaking point. I'll say a little bit more about that at the end. Our fourth ask is that the governor not shift the Medi-Cal state-only model from managed care to fee-for-service. I don't know if you know what any of those words mean, and I can tell you a year ago, I did not know what any of those words mean. But right now, we have a population, Medi-Cal only, of undocumented and people with uncertain immigration status who have been covered by a Medi-Cal expansion for the last number of years. It was a great program introduced by Governor Newsom, and he deserves all of the kudos for that. However, it has been unexpectedly, to him anyway, popular, well-received, and over-enrolled. So now they are pulling back. They are pulling back on eligibility requirements. They have already frozen enrollment. They are increasing copays. They've taken away dental insurance. But the biggest thing that the governor has proposed is this change from managed care. If any of you are on Kaiser, you know what that is, a system where a patient pays, where the provider pays a monthly fee and you get the care you need. That promotes good health, keeps people engaged with their systems. Fee for service means that we only get money when someone is sick and comes in and we treat an illness. That alone will cost our county another $200 million a year on top of the $1 billion that I've been talking about. So there's that. Our fifth ask is to please not make mobile crisis response services optional. If they are optional, that means they will not be covered by Medicaid. If they are mandated, doesn't mean you have to have them, but if it is a mandated service to be covered, they will reimburse us. And of course, our county has been one of the leaders in mobile crisis response and have very good data to show its impact. Number 6, we've asked for the governor to adequately finance in-home support services, which I spoke about a little bit ago. That's Designed as, I said, a shared responsibility, federal, state, and county. It pays for personal care and daily living assistance for low income, elderly, blind, and disabled individuals. It helps them stay in their homes rather than the much more expensive and potentially much more uh, isolating, expensive institutional care. And our seventh ask is to provide ongoing funding for homeless housing assistance and prevention rather than the current 1 year at a time allocations that don't allow us to make long term investments. I can tell you that for sure this year is going to be a one time investment, that 500 million, maybe it'll get to a billion. This governor is on his way out and nobody is thinking right now about building a long term service. I talked about indigent care a minute ago. What happens when people lose their insurance despite our best efforts, lose their Medicaid or lose their ACA subsidies? At one time, the state funded a program called indigent care. It wasn't like Medicaid. It's very, very basic, life-saving, kind of minimal that you need to do to keep someone alive care. About 20, between 20 and 30% of our population wasn't covered, needed that indigent care coverage. Between the Affordable Care Act and the Medi-Cal expansion, that number dropped to under 5%. So understandably, the state stopped providing money for indigent care. Totally reasonable. But now we are looking at a situation where more people will lose their insurance again. And at the moment, it rests with, guess who? Counties, uh, to fund that care with our general fund, that is, with your local property tax dollars. This is not a challenge that counties should or be expected to solve on our own. Let me share. Shared lots of kind of gloom, and I think my opinion of the governor's revised budget should be crystal clear. Fortunately, the state Senate, our 40 state senators, have responded to the governor's proposed budget with some good counter proposals. And this is not official information from the Senate. I don't have any of this in writing yet, but from various conversations, this is what I am gathering is happening. They've proposed $500 million to mitigate HR1 impacts, including Medi-Cal. That's $500 million statewide. They've also proposed that Walmart, Amazon, and other large companies that push employees onto Medi-Cal pay their fair share based on the number of employees, with that money going to Medi-Cal recapture. I think actually that was in the governor's proposal, and the Senate agrees with it. The Senate is also reportedly going to reject some of the governor's rollback of the Medi-Cal benefits for the UIS population, but not the all-important shift from managed care to fee-for-service. We are hopeful that they will commit somewhere between $100 million and $5 million to protect public hospital infrastructure, and that they will pull back on the proposed changes to IHSS funding. These are worthy efforts. I encourage you to thank Senators Cortese, Wahab, and Becker for their advocacy and encourage them to hold firm in their negotiations with the governor. The Assembly is likely to publish their proposal next week. So right now is just a dandy time to reach out to your Assembly members to remind them to include money for public hospitals in whatever they put forward. After the Assembly puts their recommendations forward, the governor, the Senate, and the Assembly come together and do a three-way negotiation and somehow come up with a final budget. So these truly are the days and weeks that matter. We do have this small window of time. So today, I am calling on all of you to advocate to Governor Newsom to say no. No to disenfranchising residents with the greatest needs. No to ignoring the catastrophe created by HR1. No to balancing the budget on the backs of the individuals in our communities who need those most. We are truly blessed to have an extraordinary delegation of representatives from Santa Clara County. I know that they are aligned with our values. Again, please thank your senators and encourage your Assembly members to support that $500 million to county's Senate proposal, add a public hospital proposal and let's just push this as far as we can. It is an incredibly untenable situation. Santa Clara County alone, nearly 465,000 residents, that's about a quarter of our population, close to a quarter, rely on Medicaid for their health care. More than 133,000 residents depend on CalFresh to feed their families. And again, these aren't statistics. These are children and seniors and families. So, in closing, I want to be clear. 2 million Californians losing health insurance is not just a policy decision. It is a threat to hospital stability, local economies, and community well-being. Our communities deserve a clear picture of where Santa Clara County stands and where I stand. My commitment to public safety, to the health of every resident, and to supporting our youth and families is unwavering. Nonetheless, I will be saying no to a lot of really, really important and vital programs. The number of conversations I have had in the last couple months that begin with, I know the board has to make really, really hard budget decisions and you're going to have to make cuts. But the work of my department, my organization, my entity is so vital and will create such damage if the county doesn't fund it. And sadly, they are all right. So I got to do something with that. Our county does have a track record of leading through tough challenges. And I do believe that we will meet this moment because we don't have a choice. That is it for me. These two are still awake, although kind of slouching down. So let's do some questions. Thank you for your attention.
Mhm. Mhm. Goodbye, the last call for anyone that has questions. Or go.
Wave a card around if you have a question. All right, David, let's do it. Also, can we thank my team too? David Fernandez is my Deputy Chief of Staff. Chris Core is my Communications Director. Annalise and Victor round out our communications team. And do we have anybody else here that I missed? And Bob Levy helps us so much with planning issues that sometimes I feel like he's on my team, but I don't pay him. Sorry, Bob. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, first question here is you said that Governor Newsom isn't working with counties. Who, if anyone, is he working with?
Let me first say that this is being live streamed. Um, Kaiser, um, often the private sector, private um, developers, healthcare providers, corporations. I don't know what the roots of it are because he was a mayor in the city and county of San Francisco. But really, from the time of COVID, he has seemed to feel that counties are not doing what we should be doing. And he has handled us with kind of a foot stomping, finger wagging way. That's the best I can do. I don't love it. I have great hopes for the next governor. I've been talking to a lot of people.
Through your CSAC role, right?
Look at him marketing me through my CSAC role. I am currently the president of the California State Association of Counties, which has given me extraordinary access and opportunities this year, not only to lobby with our current leaders, but to hopefully get the ear of all of the candidates who are running for governor.
And oh, as a resident of San Jose, how is the county preventing homelessness?
Oh yeah.
As a resident,
Nope.
okay. As a resident of San Jose, how is the county preventing homelessness?
So the 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 most specific thing that we're doing is that we created a number of years ago a pilot program, which was a type of basic income, guaranteed income program to 2,500 families. It was unrestricted funding every month for a limited amount of time. I think it was 2 or 3 years. And we found, because that program was carefully evaluated by MIT, no less, that was statistically significant in keeping people from losing their homes. That model is now um, a received about $70 million in funding from the TED people Audacious Project grants and is being now piloted in cities and counties around the country. It works. The problem is they are pilots because there's no ongoing funding source. So the best way to prevent homelessness is literally to make sure people don't lose their homes. The second best is our rapid rehousing program. It's when we hear and learn that people who are generally already connected with county services in some way are going to lose their housing, and there's no opportunity for a bridge or a loan or an opportunity to keep them in. Our goal is to try to get them back into housing, and we have specific rapid rehousing units set aside that people can live in for 2 years with a very significant subsidy. And at the end of 2 years, because these are folks who were very recently housed, the expectation is that if they stay in their unit, they pay whatever the rate is according to that level of a- a- AMI, average median income, or they move out somewhere else. The most expensive piece, but critical, is when folks have been unhoused for a long time. So we have not been successful in preventing homelessness. We try to get them into permanent supportive housing. Folks with chronic ongoing conditions, mental health issues, other disabilities that make it unlikely that they will be able to work and fend for themselves. Permanent supportive, permanent means permanent. Supportive means social services on site to help them manage. Though that is the end goal for that population. We do invest in shelters. We do invest in transitional housing. The county's model has been to put people into transitional housing when there is a pathway and a unit to permanent housing. What we do not want is for people to get stuck in housing that is supposed to be emergency, interim, or very temporary, but they have no place to go because somebody has decided we can't build permanent housing because it's too expensive and takes too long. It is more expensive, it takes longer, but it is doable. Our county has financed more than 6,000 of those units across 56 projects in 11 of our cities. It is doable. Um, that's probably more than you want to know.
You said something about social services there, and a lot of the people that we talk with that are homeless.
I can't even hear you.
My bad. Is it hello? Can you hear me?
Awesome.
So, when you talked about preventing homelessness, you also talked about social services, and I know a lot of that is also connecting people to Cal Fresh and general assistance. It also helps them, prevent falling into homelessness. I find that a lot of the people I talk to aren't accessing those resources.
Excellent point. Thank you. And that brings us full circle back to the eligibility workers.
Right.
If we can help people get all of the services that for which they are eligible, it is much more likely that they stay housed. Good teamwork.
Do you or can you collaborate with nonprofits to shore up the services that are cut?
So yes and yes and yes, but a lot of our direct services are provided. We contract out to community-based organizations to provide those services because by definition, they are based in the community, they are trusted, they are generally culturally responsive and appropriate for the population that they are serving, and often are much better received than the government. Um, so we have very strong and long partnerships in a number of areas. Some that come to mind right away are services for domestic violence, intimate partner violence, for reentry services. Um, I can't think of others right now, but so many. um, they're all getting cut. We're not going to disappear anybody, but those are a large portion of the conversations that I have with people telling me, I know you have to make really hard decisions, but you can't cut this program because it is saving lives. Yeah. The vast majority of our CBOs do phenomenal work, and they will be getting less funding from the county. And I can't tell you how much I hate saying that, but the minute I start saying, well, this one will get because that vital work is more vital than another, um, it really becomes so subjective and so hard to manage.
Thank you. When will the county start fixing the expressways? And then a follow-up is how about the weed trimming? I'm guessing the weed abatement.
Yeah, so the county has 8 expressways. Those are the roads for which we are responsible. I do know that they are on a continuous rotation of repair and maintenance. I do not know how long that rotation is, but that's an answer. David, in addition to being my deputy chief of staff, oversees all of the work in the housing, land use, environment, and transportation departments. So that is information if whoever asked the question wants to follow up, we can find out about the specific expressway you're asking about. Also, if there's a weed abatement issue, David can also help you get to the right number place department, and we will walk you through that.
Right. Dear Dear Supervisor Ellenberg, yesterday I attended a packed action of First Unitarian Church where I heard Supervisors Dwan and Arenas pledge to fund immigration lawyers to help immigrants detained by ICE. ICE threats ICE treats detainees very poorly, no food, etc. The question is the county going to fund these lawyers to assist immigrants detained by ICE? If so, how much?
Yes, we absolutely are continuing to fund legal services. And when I note that we're cutting, we are not cutting out entirely. We are reducing funding to many organizations. Immigration legal services, we are continuing to fund. I can't remember what the amount was, 6.7 million.
Around that, yeah. And we can get specific
Uh,
information for sure.
Again, we can follow up with us for the exact number, but it's between $6 and $7 million. You may have also seen we did a very big press conference last week, highlighting the proposal, the concern that there's a proposal to use a property in South County to create a detention center. Um, you heard our, if you heard the press conference, our county council lawyers are not. I love you, hon. Lawyers are not generally the rock stars of press conferences, but Tony Lopresti was very clear that we will use every legal tool and strategy that we have at our disposal to prevent that from being constructed here, and that we will continue to provide legal services. This is our workforce. These are the folks not only that are doing the ag work, but that are working in the vast majority of our small businesses that are participating in our economy, who have children who have been here. They are the fabric of our community, and we want them here.
Great. Can you please comment on the liability the county faces pending the foster care related to the Racial Justice Act? I can't make out the other word, but I think you were talking about this earlier in your first comments around.
Say that again.
Yeah,
I heard two different things. I'm sorry.
can you please comment on the liability the county faces based on pending foster care related law suits? That's it, suits and the Racial Justice Act.
So those are two different things. I definitely cannot comment on any the existence of any ongoing litigation in the county. So I'm sorry, no on that. The Racial Justice Act um, is an act that was actually created by Ash Kalra, who's an assembly member in an adjacent district, that requires prosecutors to look back at convictions that they won to determine whether there was racial bias in reaching those decisions. And that is a very laudable process. It is also extraordinarily time consuming and expensive. So I'm not sure if liability in that case means a lawsuit, but it certainly is that that the district attorney's office, whose budget comes largely from the general fund, is having to spend more money, as is the public defender, in relitigating some of these cases.
Right. Last one we have here is, can you please address the fundraising efforts for City Council member Ortiz in his reelection? And then it says against the budget issues the county is facing.
I don't understand the question. Uh, Peter Ortiz is a candidate that I'm supporting. I co-hosted a fundraiser for him last weekend. I don't understand what the question is.
Yeah. So I got here. So happy if anyone wants to follow up,
Okay.
more than
Definitely follow up with David.
I'll follow up
Um,
on that.
Okay.
That's my question.
We had agreed and set a standard to do questions writing. Thank you. Happy to take that up with you. I'm going to finish my presentation now. Thank you all so much. I will hang back for, I don't know, a little while. I do have a dinner date reservation for my aforementioned 36th anniversary. But thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for any advocacy support that you can offer to the governor. Thank your legislators. Encourage them to be strong. Push the governor. Let's try to do every single thing we can. I appreciate all of you. Thanks.